Yeah, selfishly, I grew up a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and seeing kind of what the how Taylor has brought fashion and women's fashion specifically to sports. What have you noticed there? Because I think before you had Aaron Andrews and you had like a few other that were doing designs in football, but I think Taylor has done a really great job of bringing her uniqueness to the sport as well.
For sure. I think there's an entire sidebar section to, Taylor Swift Style Volume 2 that could be dedicated to Chiefs game day fashion because I think she approaches game day fashion with just as much care and thought and intent as she does the rest of her fashion, but just in a slightly different lens.
Building off of that, actually, I feel like I mentioned it, I call it the outside era. So seeing her going to these Chiefs games, I feel like we get to almost see a different side of her. And I'm curious to see if you would agree, because of course, typically what we've been seeing the last few years of Taylor, she's going to award shows, she's performing, she's doing things on a much like larger, grander professional scale. Whereas a Chiefs game, she's able to dress in entirely different fashion, quite literally. She can, be much more casual, which she isn't always, but she is at times. And I've noticed specifically for her sports fashion, she tends to go a bit more like high-low with the levels of fashion she's using. She'll mix some really, expensive pieces with that are high-end designer and then with like a $30 Victoria's Secret corset that was on sale. And I'm like, this is a whole new side. It's really fun to see. And I feel like we're almost unlocking something new here. So I'm curious how you feel now getting to see this other side of her and a new way of her dressing, if it's kind of been, exciting for you and switching things up for you as well.
I've always said that there are kind of three pillars to Taylor's fashion, and there are kind of three sub pillars when it comes to her Chiefs fashion. But one of Taylor's style pillars always has been the high low. I think Taylor has always excelled at the high low and has for many, many years, like even dating back to, the 1989 era in 2014, she would wear like a pair of Christian Louboutin shoes with a dress from Urban Outfitters. She would wear like a Brandy Melville $30 New York like varsity shirt and pair it with a Prada bag. Like the high low is classic Taylor. And I think is a huge, ongoing part of her visual brand and is a big part of, her as a celebrity of, maintaining this sense of aspiration, inspiration, but also this sense of relatability and accessibility, which is a big, huge part of her music is creating content from her life and creating art that is relatable, that we resonate with, where it's like that exact scenario may not have happened to me, but I feel that feeling. Or that exact thing did happen to me. How did she like access my diary pages? Like that's my story. Like um so the high low is like classic Taylor. But I think her game day fashion specifically has been such a fantastic intentional um, gameplay of, evoking or using local brands from Kansas City, using women owned brands, using vintage to her benefit of, pieces that are sustainable that don't, funnel money directly into the NFL merchandise funnel. Using sentimental accessories that underline why she is there, which is, her romantic relationship with Travis Kelce. She'll wear 87s. She'll wear like cute, sweet, like a TNT like monogrammed bracelet that is a reference to her and his initials. Like I think what's really cool about Taylor's game day fashion is not necessarily that we're seeing a different aspect of her style, which I guess that we are because like we've never really seen her have to execute so many outfits that have a certain amount of guardrails in it of like it needs to fit a certain color theme and it needs to allude to like it needs to tie into the reason why she is there. So there are, constants and constraints of her game day fashion that is interesting to watch play out repeatedly, like week over week at all of these game days. But what's more interesting is that we're seeing Taylor show up fashionably, consistently as like she's the main character of our universes, but like in that universe, she is a secondary character in that universe. And so it's interesting to see how she dresses to be a secondary player in that world because she's not the main character, even though she's the main character of our world.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And even when you talk about the collaboration, working with different women in the sport as well, and it just is, I think it's brought a unique style and shows that, shows the involvement of women's sports paraphernalia as a way of showing off. Because I think basketball does a great job of it, but football, in a sense, doesn't do it as much. And I think Taylor's brought a lot to that as well. If you enjoyed that clip, make sure you head over to www.bookupapp.com to download our app so you can connect with your favorite bookish content creators, start conversations, and start your own book club.